I'm in a race with time. I put my life on the record, always giving it effort at night. I'm always restless, this music's a life sentence. Perfecting my craft in seconds, the essences of the herb used to make the world turn. People earn what's not deserved, while the weak get knocked down. Got people losing their health, this evil's making me glad. I hope I make my father proud, devote my life to writing raps. I hope I'm on the right path, spending years of my life that I could never take back. I lost friends.
Welcome to Face Off. I'm Chris Fritcher, your host. I want to tell you what Face Off's going to be about. First of all, I'm so appreciative of the Autotainment Network asking me to come on and do the show Face Off. We're going to have great content for you. You got Auto Dealer Live that everybody knows about. All kinds of shows, over 10 shows to start the network off, and many more to come. Many more things are in the works. But what I want to do with Face Off is talk about the things that you are dealing with in your dealership on a daily basis. Things like, what is your exposure in the F&I office? It seems like every single day there's an article about some F&I office in some dealership somewhere getting fined. There's all kinds of regulatory complaints. There's all kinds of things that are happening in regulatory compliance issues across the country. If you own a dealership or you run a dealership, you owe it to yourself to start watching Face Off. We're going to have actual attorneys come on that deal with defending dealerships across the country. We're going to attempt to get actual attorney generals of states to come on and talk about some of these restrictions that have been put on dealerships. Some of them warranted, some of them not. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about how to protect your dealership. We're going to have segments like Fritch Rant, where I'm going to talk about things that really irritate me in the automotive business and how the automotive business is changing. We're also going to have dollars and cents. We're going to talk about your dollars in your dealership and how it makes sense to protect those dollars or make more money, dollars and cents. There's all kinds of things we have coming on Face Off. But the real reason I'm doing this show is because I've been in the business for over 12 years, and I absolutely love the car industry. I love it with a passion. There's no other industry that gives individuals an opportunity to make six figures. No matter your background, no matter your race, no matter your sexuality, none of that matters in the automotive business. All that matters in the automotive business is if you have a hunger, a desire to be successful, and you have a skill set where you can be successful, guess what? There is an opening in a car dealership near you. And that's what I love about the automotive industry. Everyone has that opportunity from day one to get themselves into a six-figure position, no matter their education level. So here on Face Off, that's really what our show is going to be about. We're going to talk about hard-hitting issues in the automotive business. You're not going to come on this show, and we're not going to hear a lot about sales processes and things like that. We're going to hear about things that actually hit a dealer's pocketbook, things that they need to watch out for. We're not going to just talk about franchise dealers. We have a bunch of actual people coming on that run independent dealerships, buy here, pay here dealerships. If it deals with the automotive industry, we're going to talk about it on this show. Now I want to welcome my first guest on Face Off, Carrie DeCavallis from DeCavallis Consulting. Carrie, how are you doing today?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for asking. Now, the reason I had you come on the show today, we have a segment on the shows called Fritch Rant. And my rant this week is actually what you wrote a blog about. You wrote a blog this week about, what was the title of the blog? Matter of fact, it's about how the car business is getting soft. But what was the title of the blog?
Well, I changed the title a couple times just to see how my reach would be affected by the title. But currently right now it's automotive dealers, protect your revenue. It's got several different titles on it, but it's on my LinkedIn page.
But essentially the article is about how how you see the dealership getting soft in the industry as a whole. Not every dealership, right, obviously, but how it seems like the industry is starting to get soft. And when I read your blog this week, I honestly, I started to think to myself, you know what, right on, right on. And then I had some instances that happened this week that I'm like, you know what, dadgum, I'm gonna have her come on and talk about this. But before we dig into it, tell us a little bit about your background.
Um, 25 years of living in a car dealership. I've been on the desk. I about 5 years ago took over internet departments and found out that I absolutely loved it. So now I go around and consult other dealers, putting their processes into place for being able to handle the traffic and designing their traffic so it's actually doubled and giving them a path to run on. So that's what I do, and I love it.
Well, let's dig into your blog and talk about it. It's on LinkedIn. If you'd like to connect with Carrie DeCavalis, reach out to her on LinkedIn. But it's out there on LinkedIn, and the blog really goes into your rant was more geared towards the phone ups and leads in the BDC. So tell us a little bit about what you wrote, and let's kind of start there.
Well, I see it in the BDC mainly because I see dealers spending money on leads and staffing that is not even getting used because they don't have either trained staff or they don't have the structure in place to be able to train them adequately like we went through back in the day. Sales staff mainly is one of the main things that actually bothers me because they've become kind of like entitled children, some of them, not all of them. Keep in mind, this isn't every store, but it's enough to where it's very aggravating to watch. Just knowing how we learned, just seeing the entitlement, I need new leads, and you just started a week ago,
You don't even know how to work a lead.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Like, let's show you where the cars are first.
Exactly. Well, when I first got started in the business on the floor, and let me just say this: I love the car business. I grew up in the car business as far as my professional career really started in the automotive industry. And the reason I love this industry so much is because it doesn't really matter your background. No one cares about what race you are, what gender you are,
Right.
what your economic background is, or even education level. If you can talk
Right.
to people and you know how to bring in revenue, whether it's from selling cars or being an F&I or even quote unquote a bean counter, there's a place for you in the industry. And if you're good at it, there's always a place for you in the industry. And that's what I love about the business. It gives opportunities to people that normally wouldn't have an opportunity to make six figures, that opportunity. Every single day, there's a new person coming into the industry that literally from day one has an opportunity to make six figures. And so that's what I love about the industry. But it seems like to me, and tell me if you agree with this, when I came in the industry, it was really towards the late 90s, and the internet age started to begin, and you could already start to see the old school way of doing business starting to phase out, and this new way of doing business with the internet and things of that nature started to come into the industry. And I think in the beginning it was really good, but my personal opinion is the internet has changed the way we've done business so much that I think personally it's made a lot of dealerships soft. What do you think about that?
That's exactly what I think. I think that we've become kind of like whipped puppies in a sense because we have to get beat up by customers now who have access to all of our information. Like I said, which, hey, you know what, we've adapted to the transparency. But in another way, we've done ourselves a terrible injustice because we've let go a lot of that edge that we had, as far as, with our staff, with the customers, everything. And I think that it's actually killing our business. I mean, I think when the internet came along, it's a blessing and it's a curse.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think one of the ways that it's been a blessing is I think a lot of dealers that back in the day probably couldn't afford the television advertising and couldn't afford radio advertising. It was a cheaper, inexpensive way of doing business. Now, obviously, it's gotten a lot more expensive as time has gone on, but a lot of dealerships figured out early SEO and how to get their dealerships up on the search engines, and a lot of dealerships benefited from that. I think the other thing that benefited too was honestly the manufacturers. There's more information about different makes and models. People now don't just go and look at a car on the side of the road and say, "Oh, you know what? I like that car," and then go into the dealership and buy it. A lot of manufacturers normally wouldn't get a second look. People are now searching on the internet, and they're comparing cars. So I think a lot of,
Right.
I mean, case in point, look at Kia. Kia is blowing up, and
Right.
I honestly think the reason for that is the internet. The internet has a big, huge part in that, and people are shopping around, looking at different makes. I don't think if the internet age was around, I don't think Kia would be as popular, probably.
Yeah, that's absolutely the 100. That's the ultimate benefit. And that kind of leads back to what I was saying is, as far as in stores go, a lot of people are like, oh, my GM doesn't want to spend money on advertising. Oh, this, that, and the other. You have the leads coming in. You have the attraction. You just don't have the qualified staff to know how to handle it if they're not being trained properly. And one of the things that I love about it, like you said, is the ability to take someone who didn't have a chance, maybe in a different field, who didn't have time to go to college, like me, which sounds terrible, but I was a single mom, 18 years old, and could make a difference, could make six figures, and then just bringing up the new generation. So,
well, let's talk a little bit about the quote unquote softer side of the dealership, or the softening of the car experience on the dealer's side.
right.
I think when I came into business, and probably when you came into business too, it wasn't uncommon for a sales manager to go tell you to grab your business cards and go to the local mall or shopping center and go prospect. I don't see that anymore. I mean, you're in dealerships day to day. I talk to literally hundreds of dealerships a week, but you're in the dealerships every single day. What am I right about that? I mean, do you see that at all going on in dealerships anymore?
I don't see that. And that's part of the charm of back in the day, was going out and having to network. Hand out your business cards, put flyers on cars, all that, join the Chamber of Commerce, get yourself out there, run it like your own business. And I've seen just a huge drastic change in that, where it's just very complacent. And that's most stores that I'm in.
We know one of the things that got me fired up this week is we from a business perspective deal with hundreds of dealerships every single week. And one of the things that annoys me is my where we're at, we have a 100% TO policy. We indoctrinated it from the automotive business. From my days in being in the automotive business, it was if a customer came through the front door, they didn't leave without speaking to a manager. And maybe you put together a deal, but maybe you don't. But lots of times, just that second face made all the difference in the world.
Right.
And first of all, when I go car shopping, I don't see it near as much as I used to. And now I'm even, talking to general managers that get insulted when you when you TO them to a manager, and it seems kind of like, really? I mean, where's your TO policy? Oh, we don't have one. Are you serious? So talk a little bit about what you think about this as far as the TO policy, and do you think it's just another illness from the softening of a dealership?
I do. And I was in a store recently this past summer where that's exactly how it was. They'd almost get insulted. The desk would get insulted if you came up and you wanted, them to come out and meet your customer. It's like, what? No, go work your deal. Get out of here. And it's like, wow, we don't even know the basics anymore, So
that's mind-numbing to me. I remember distinctly one day I went to a new dealership. I got recruited. I worked for years at AutoNation. I got recruited to another franchise, and another company, I should say. And so my first day there, they asked me to work in finance. You know how it goes. They want me to work in finance for a couple of weeks to kind of get the lay of the land, and then they were going to blow out the sales manager, and they moved me to sales management as soon as they blew out the manager. So my first night there, I worked a bell to bell, and the salesman came in and presented a deal to the sales manager, and he said, "What's going on with the deal?" And the sales manager or the salesperson said, well, I just can't land them on anything. They like this PT Cruiser, but I just can't get a commitment out of them. The sales manager, without blinking an eye, turns around, grabs his invoice book, tears an invoice out of it, and says, "Tell him we'll sell it for $500 below invoice." And he circled the number on the paper, and I'm like, "You're not going to go talk to these people?" Oh my gosh, that's how we do business.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's
That's what I'm talking about.
So is that what you're seeing in some of the stores that you're in?
Yeah. And you know what it's coming from? Just the generation before that maybe got started, when it's around the same time, a little after that you did, that it's just different. It's different. It's you could not do that. I mean, and maybe we were so hardcore trained back in the day because they throw something at you. I don't know if you know about that, but back in the 90s, it wouldn't be uncommon for a chair to go flying across the showroom.
Oh, yeah.
You had a fear of the authority. You didn't dare let a customer leave like that. And you held on, you worked the customer. And of course, it's not every store. And like I just came out of an Acura store where that store's run like a tight ship. I mean, they respect their GM and she's old school too. But it's enough stores to where it's very scary to think of what's going on with our industry.
Well, it's amazing. You talk about the Acura dealership that you were just in, and they were on a tight ship. Recently, we had a dealership that we deal with. New GM came in, and it was all about him placing certain things in place, like how they're handling people when they come in the door. I'm sure TO process. I don't know exactly all their processes, but I know the individual is very strict as far as how he wants things ran in his dealership.
Right.
And within the first month, he made an immediate impact. A store that normally averaged 80 cars a month went to the very first month he's there to 200 some odd cars. The next month sold over 300. Now they're averaging over 300 cars a month, and that happened in a 2-month cycle simply from him coming in and doing exactly what we're talking about, what we're frustrated with, TO processes and working the leads that are sitting in front of you, working the people that come in the door. It's amazing to me how you can go to a dealership sometimes and not see salespeople actually go out and take it up.
I know. But then when you put a leader in place, then you can see the difference. Mm-hmm. And just like, having those key people, in your main positions in your stores, having real leaders in there that can, be that velvet hammer that commands that respect from that leadership, and that fear of authority will make all the difference in your store, and it'll gain you revenue instead of costing you. And this day and age with the internet and with the manufacturer, basically getting, the main source of our profit these days,
Sure.
That's where we get our money. It's from our people. So, yeah. Awesome.
So now we've talked about how the dealership has kind of gone soft, if you will. Let's talk about some things that, first of all, I don't think there's another industry that you can come in and literally not have any sort of professional background and can start and have an opportunity to make six figures. And quite honestly, I think the reason why me and you were having this discussion and why I made it the topic of this show is not because we're complaining about the industry. It's more of we love the industry. And
love it.
It breaks my heart to see new people come in the industry and not have the same opportunities that we did because they weren't properly trained. And that's really frustrating. I mean, you see all these guys and they don't TO people when they walk in the door. There's not an emphasis on working the person in front of them, and it's heartbreaking to me because it's taking money out of not only out of the dealer's pocket, but out of the sales people's pocket too. We're winding down here, so before you go, I want to talk about, because I know you deal a lot with BDCs and BDC training. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about some positive things that a dealership can do to improve their overall BDC process, to not make them so soft, that actually will help them get people in the door.
Basically, just making sure that when you hire someone that has a great attitude. Not just someone who has phone skills training, but has a great attitude and is motivated. And then you can train the skill there. I think that's the first and most important thing because I don't see a lot of that. but giving them an opportunity, having enough respect for your employee to give them opportunity to train them correctly on how to, how to do the job instead of just putting them in front of a phone and telling them to call people. We do love this industry and we love our people. And the beauty of the whole thing is the fact that we can, take someone and transform their entire lives and change their lives. And that's one of the main things I love about my job now. But, and I'm sorry, I forgot the question because I got caught up with my passion. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Look, I was talking about how what is something that they can do in you talked about hiring new people and make sure you're hiring the right people. We were talking about what they can do to improve their PDC. Yeah.
Yeah, and then make sure you're training them, and then have accountability always, daily. Just like you're trying to do anything great. Be a coach daily for them, and for your whole staff, and you see huge difference. Just like what you're talking about, with the leader that went in and changed that store, and doubled the units. So that makes every bit of difference. They're the first point of contact half the time when they're coming through the internet. Those people are very important in BDC.
Oh yeah. Well, she is Carrie DeCavallis from DeCavallis Consulting. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and please come on again sometime.
Thank you so much for having me, and have a great day.
Hey, you too.
I'm in a race with time. I put my life on the record, always giving it effort at night. I'm always restless, this music's a life sentence. Perfecting my craft in seconds, the essences of the herb used to make the world turn. People earn was not deserved, while the weak get knocked down. Got people losing their health, this evil's making me mad. I hope I make my father proud, devote my life to writing raps. I hope I'm on the right path, spending years of my life that I could never take back. I lost friends.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Just a Millennial, episode 3. My name is Mike Cherup.
And this is Mikey Okendo.
And this is Just a Millennial.
Intro.
Audio Jungle.
Welcome back from that wonderful intro. God, I wonder who made that. It was so great. The music and everything was just awesome. I don't know.
Somebody who toots their own horn.
I'm not tooting my own horn, but I loved every second of it. I love every second, every time I see it.
Who came up with that phrase? That's a weird...
That's right up there with whatever tinkers your bell, whatever floats your boat. And
I've never heard that one. Tinkers your bell? That sounds like a weird euphemism to me.
It's kind of odd, but it's it's right there with whatever floats your boat. Funny story. I actually watched an episode of Mythbusters.
Really? Oh, did they do that?
And they floated a paper boat on gas.
What?
They found a gas that was much more dense and wouldn't escape from an open air fish tank. They poured the gas in, folded the paper boat, set it down, and it stayed there.
What?
And what would happen is they took a cup, pretend like they were scooping out water, and it would go down. I was like, my mind was blown.
Because they were scooping out the gas.
I'm not going to say I'm going to put a link in here to it, but go find it. It is don't leave right now. No, not right now. No, stay here.
It's not that good.
I mean, it's great, but have your mind blown later or, during Face Off with Chris Fritcher or whatever. No big deal. He's not watching.
Right.
But anyway, so today's episode, we definitely want to hit on something that this could literally span probably the entire lifetime of our show. And that is your digital footprint. What is your digital footprint? What are you doing digitally to market? What is your website doing? Well, how are you driving traffic to your website? Are you accommodating your customers that are coming to your website looking for more than just your information? Are you driving people away with what you're putting out there online? All of those things are under your digital footprint. And there's no way that we can cover every single aspect in just 30 minutes, but darn it, we're going to try.
That's right. As we always do.
We always do.
I don't think we've ever actually been successful with covering like everything that we want to cover.
Pretty much.
But
that sounds about right.
It's ambition is what it is.
Yes.
It's what it is. That's a good thing.
We're going to do a 3-hour show, and actually we have like 24 minutes left at this point. So
yeah, and we're completely wasting time. But that's okay. I mean, it's fun. Hopefully you laughed.
I'll kind of take the lead on this one. The first thing that I'm kind of gonna lead us into is obviously your website. That's one of your biggest presences online. It's what you're doing, with your website. Next, we'll go into socially. What is it you're doing? What is it you're not doing? What avenues are you on? Have you even driven up a certain avenue yet? How do you know if anything good is out there if you've never been down that street? That literally came off the top of my head.
That's cool. The street,
not to toot my own horn. Like, I really don't toot my own horn, but that was like kind of mind-boggling.
None of this is scripted, so anything you hear.
True. This one definitely isn't scripted. And the last thing we definitely want to hit on is, digitally, what are you doing to accommodate your customers?
Or not doing.
Yeah, it is, or not doing.
Because that may be the case.
So the first thing we definitely want to hit on is, your websites. And, be prepared. This may sound like a gripe fest for the next minute, but something that absolutely drives me nuts in the automotive world is...
Does it grind your gears?
It grinds my gears. You know what really grinds my gears? When Lindsay Lohan is up on stage and she's just like there, just shaking her thing, and I'm just sitting here with my beer like, what? What do you want me to do? Totally just stole that from Family Guy.
Which is funny.
Sorry, Seth. I didn't mean to take it from you. But no, I get it. To an extent, I definitely get why this happens, but to the same extent, I don't. Why does every dealership have the same exact website? I mean, I'm all about continuity. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying if you own a group of 20 dealerships that you guys don't all have a continuous theme across all of yours. But for the love of everything.
There can't just be one dealership that has the same website everywhere.
Let me make this example. When you go to a restaurant and it's bad, and
Like the food's bad?
And the food's bad, the service is bad, it's just not taken care of. So, like they're literally just like towing the line of being shut down by the health department. Somehow you managed to go there because somebody told you it was the greatest thing in the world. You took the recommendation.
They worked there.
They're no longer a friend. You completely unfriended them on Facebook and stopped following them everywhere. But you send them feedback and tell them all this, and they then open 20 more locations in the surrounding areas to your city. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't.
Right.
So why is it? And it's kind of a monopoly to an extent because a lot of people buy their websites from the same
place.
company.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to bash that company, but for the love, these websites, I mean...
Is your website responsive? Let's just go down a simple checklist.
Oh.
Is your website responsive? Okay.
No.
Do you have a basic chat function? And the little sub question under that question, if you have a chat function, if I do something on it, if I message you, like, does anyone respond to me?
Actually, another sub question on that. Does your website ask me to chat with you 12 different times in my 5-minute visit?
But like in a pop-up, right?
Oh my God. You know, it pops up on the screen, then it shows up in the little corner down here.
Yeah.
And
It's like the paperclip guy from Microsoft.
Oh my gosh, nobody liked the paperclip. Think about that. Don't let your website be the Microsoft paperclip because nobody likes the paperclip.
We all remember him.
Oh my God, he's sitting on the screen next to us right now with that stupid smug smirk.
Just hit him.
Yeah, just you know that's the end of the gripe fest, and now we're kind of gonna hit on it. You know, I understand why a lot of people buy from these guys, and there's a lot of things that you guys have, especially in the dealership world. You have to have certain things on your website that's completely different than what Old Navy has or H&M or Finish Line, which all places that I shop online.
You need an inventory feed for your cars.
Absolutely.
That's unusual for most other industries.
And we were actually talking about this today in a meeting, and it seems like there's just sometimes that the automotive world always seems like it's just maybe a few too many years behind. Because like these websites would have been astounding, like back when I was still in high school in 2007, 2008. Like it would have been great. Like these things would have been cutting edge. And now you look at it, and everybody builds these clean, simple websites. They still have everything you need. It's all laid out perfectly. I've been to websites that are clean that have chat functionality, but that's the biggest thing. From a millennial standpoint, one of the biggest things, and probably one of the words you'll hear us use more than anything, is the word clean. When somebody asks me, what are you looking to do with this video? I want something clean and simple. Clean and simple. For the love of God, look at one of the biggest companies in the world.
You know where we're going.
And where we're going is Apple. Look at their logo.
But why does it work? Why is it that matters? Because think about just when we were kids, which is going to say something about our age, but you know that. Think about when we were kids, the type of internet that existed. Early 1990s, you know where I'm going, early 1990s all the way up to early 2000s, but especially just 1990s. Think about how email, internet, everything digital functioned at the time. Wow, it was brutal. I mean, I'm talking about.
Oh my gosh!
You go online, you have that moving rainbow text, the random GIFs that are, you know what I'm talking about, embedded. You would have images on sites that weren't even appropriately sized. They were just randomly placed.
Oh my gosh!
Horrible. So why is it that we like simple and clean? I don't know. Maybe because we grew up with that and we want things to be simple and make sense and not have rainbow text floating on the screen with GIFs and loud noises. And think about the color schemes. You remember?
Oh my gosh, I was getting ready to say the color schemes were the worst thing in the world. It was like, it would be lime green with pink accents and black boxes and white text, and you're like, what?
Yeah, this is what we grew up with. This is what you probably dealt with in your business if you're older than us, trying to work with this. So, you think, why does it matter if it's simple? Well, because we're trying to distance ourselves as much as possible from that hideous history of, think about when you tried to browse the web back then. Why was it not fun? Well, sure, maybe because a lot of companies weren't on there and you couldn't really buy stuff, but maybe it was because you couldn't freaking find anything or you didn't know what to do. There was the user experience was awful.
I was gonna go with slow, but okay. We can go with that reason. Just thinking about some of that stuff.
It's so bad, isn't it?
Actually, perfect example, because I think somebody that used to work with us showed me this like a year ago when it still existed, was Space Jam. If you remember that movie.
Oh, yes.
The website still exists from when that movie came out in the late 90s, and it is still exactly the same. You ever want to be nostalgic for a bad reason, go look at that website. As nostalgic as I am about that movie, and I loved it, it is one of the most atrocious websites I've ever seen.
And we're not saying that your website is that bad. What we are saying is his point, simple, clean. Why is that important? It's important. Not you know you're the business owner. You're thinking about ROI. You're thinking about like, what can I get off of this? Websites can be expensive. Why should I invest in making it a little more simple for people to find something? Well, because people will buy more from you if it's easier to navigate your site. They will not click off of your site and go to the next dealer's website who may have a better one. This is actually very directly related to your sales. This is great ROI for you. This is great for your brand. This is great for your everything.
Take for example, if you go to let's just say you go to Amazon, and
What you do.
Amazon, you're just looking up Star Wars. And yeah, I mean, that's, dear Lord, you're getting back 4 million different possible search results at that point. Yeah. But let's just say you do that, and Star Wars is obviously still a huge thing right now, even up to this point, which, on a complete side note, I'm really hoping they shatter Avatar's record of like 2.7 million in the box office.
They haven't already?
They are at like, at the time of this video, I think they're on the cusp of breaking 2 billion, and it's not even probably 4 or 5 weeks in total by the time you guys are seeing this.
I hope they beat it too.
I'm hoping they break it, and I hope they shatter it. Disney made one of the best investments in the world because they paid $4 billion to own the Star Wars franchise, not counting the merchandise they made alone in Christmas. Oof. Oh my gosh. Oof. Like, that's insane. They're building Star Wars Land, which I don't like going to Disney, but I might just go to Disney for Star Wars Land.
Yes.
That would lightsaber fights in the street. Let's do it. But not to get back on topic, but let's just say you go and you type Star Wars, and all of a sudden you have no way of narrowing those 4 million results down.
Ooh.
How frustrating would that be? I want you to think about that. And there's places that I've done it on where you go to, I'm a drummer, and right up there, some drum companies' websites are atrociously laid out. Their color schemes are horrible. You know, you try to look for something, but you end up having to click through like 12 different subcategories just to find what you're looking for. And it's like, oh, no. But, you know, are we telling you right now you need to take a step back, you need to literally pull your website down, hire somebody and have them spend the next 120 hours building you a brand new one? No, but there's different aspects that you could look at it, you know.
Small changes.
Ease of use is one of the biggest ones. Not just even for millennials. Millennials, we can probably go to one of the most complex websites if you tried to bury stuff, and I bet we could probably find it.
This is for older people.
This is for older people. This is for people that aren't tech savvy. They need to be able to find stuff. Not that they're necessarily going to buy a car online, but what if they're sitting with their grandchildren, or their children for that matter, anybody of any age, even, you know, the boomers, the Gen Xers, the Gen Ys, whatever age group you want to throw out there, there's a good chance that at some point in time they're going to visit your website. And I think the best question is, what does your website say about you? Does it say that you're part of the cookie cutter dealership, that every other dealership has a website like yours? Or does your website say, we care about our customer experience, we care about ease of use, we care about our appeal to our customers, and we want to make this simple? Whether that customer is literally just coming on your website to find your address, which they probably somehow skipped the Google address,
right?
Which, that's another thing. Make sure your address is updated and your hours are updated in Google.
Yes.
Make sure. Because that was the most frustrating thing in the world, was going to Taco Bus. When they said they closed at 10, it was 9:20, and they were all shut down. I was mad, and I really wanted some Taco Bus. But that's one of the biggest things. I go to dealers' websites on a daily basis, and it drives me crazy.
Well, sure, because if you claim, which most dealers do, and a lot of them do a great job of this, but if you claim that you are different, you always hear people saying this, not just dealers, but business owners in general. You hear people saying, we're different in some way, shape, or form. Our customer experience is better for this reason. We have a great company culture. We put effort into making our customers feel like they're treated well and that they're special. If you say that, let's say on TV, radio, and all of your other marketing efforts, but then on your website they get there and that's not evidenced because it doesn't look like you're any different from anyone nearby. You say you're different, but it doesn't reflect in your actions online. And you say, well, sure it does, because my actions in marketing online, it reflects there. Well, great, but marketing sends people to your website. And if you haven't made your website what it should be, well, why are you even spending the money on the marketing? Because at the end of the day, they're going to judge you on if you're different or not, largely based off of that. And he just made a great point. A lot of people seem to think that you should just make websites great for millennials. Like, we're the ones who care about the design. We're the ones who care about the clean look and the cool logo and the great color scheme and the nice images. Honestly, like he said, we can navigate almost anything because of the fact that we're digital natives and we're used to this. We grew up with it. We can figure things out. The people you're doing this for probably are not the ones you thought of. It's the ones who are older. It's the
not even my grandmother for that matter. I mean, my mom for that matter. I mean, if
my mom too.
Oh, I mean, it's just, you know, and it's crazy to think that, you know, millennials are the ones that are saying you need to make stuff simpler. I'm not saying you need to make a flat logo and you can only have 2 colors in your logo and things like that. Look, you guys work and sell products that's on, you know, Kia, Nissan, Infinity, whatever. You know, we can go down the list.
Right.
But we're not saying that your logo is what's key. It helps, don't get me wrong. It's definitely an aid. But your website just, I can't tell you, you know, you go to the bottom and I won't name the company because, you know, we're not about that.
But you see it.
But you see at the bottom of the website, powered by blah. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that, you know, what they do is a bad thing. I'm not saying that by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm saying if you go to, let's just say 50 dealerships in your state and 35 of those look exactly like yours, I mean, for a customer that's just looking at you guys online, what's really going to make you stand out?
And
your big old smile that's on your picture? Is that what's the little video that plays in the front?
That is it. That's going to do it.
The video?
Yeah. No, their smile. Smile.
Yeah.
That's definitely going to do it.
It's just, in a digital world, you know, we are overwhelmed with digital everywhere.
A lot of it's crappy quality.
I wake up in the morning and I delete no less than 30 emails every morning during my morning routine.
Why do you do that, by the way?
Because I know exactly who's sending me stuff. You know, some of them are work related. Like I get a couple of them every night at midnight that are just reports that I check really quick to make sure nothing bad's going wrong with my stuff.
You don't want to waste your time with the rest of them.
But I'm not going to waste my time.
Because your time is valuable.
I can name off a few of them. Old Navy's one, Guess is another. You know, these are all like, you know, retail stores. But I look at my phone and see who it is, and it's just like swipe, 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 swipe. That's an interesting question. Are you getting swiped away? And that's kind of a quick segue because we're only going to be able to hit on this based on my little wristwatch timer.
Wow.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time on websites.
Well, it's good though. It's very important.
But we won't go into the full social aspect. But, you know, let me ask this question is, are your email blasts that you're sending out, whether you're going through another company or you're doing your own database mailers, are you just getting swiped away?
And if so, why are people not replying to you? There's a reason for it. And like my reason for it is probably because I don't want to have my time wasted. My time is very important.
Yeah.
That's, I think, what most millennials' points are. A lot of times people seem to think that it's just because, well, you didn't do good enough image design, or, well, the CTA wasn't compelling enough. Like, you'll hear all this marketing jargon thrown at you from your marketing manager, which is fine. Like, you have to have calls to action. You have to have good design. All of those things are important. But why else might it be important? Like, that's great, your design of it. But what if your content's just not compelling enough? What if there's just no value add? Like, there's really no secret magic dust or anything for your website or anything. All of this is about value, and that you hear that term all the time, but seriously, what does that mean to you? Like, if it's a value add to your life, ultimately it means that it's worth my time. Like, we're talking about, if we're talking about marketing and you're talking about interruptions and like, I heard somebody ask the question recently, is it ever okay to interrupt somebody online, like with ads or something? And the answer was
savings. You can't skip this Geico ads because it's already over. Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Oh,
You see how annoying that is? You see how irritating that is? Now imagine that is your website, your email blast, whatever. No, you never, pop-up ads needed to die 15 years ago when they were flashing boxes that said you were the 1 millionth customer on the website. Those needed to die a long time ago. Oh, don't make anything that pops up.
Because they don't have value, because at the end of the day, all you should put, this is just a general rule of thumb for anything you do digitally. Don't do anything that doesn't add value, which I keep saying that over and over again. I'm trying to reiterate it because it's important. It's not an ambiguous phrase that doesn't mean anything. It's not just something that a guru said that sounds nice, but it's like, oh yeah, there's no actually actionable thing that you can do on that. No, there is. All you have to do is think. First of all, you have to actually think about what your customers want. That's something for one. But then you have to think about, okay, what do they want? Now, how can I deliver on that in a way that doesn't annoy them, that actually adds something to their life? What can I do? What kind of email can I send somebody that's actually going to make their day better, more valuable, that's going to build and add on to their life? How can I give them tips about something? Can I...
I'll tell you one thing, and I'm sure a lot of dealerships do this, but I would even say to take it another mile. One of the reasons that I still open my emails from, let's just say AutoNation, I won't say which one specifically that I bought my car from, but one of the main reasons I do it is I know every 3 months I have to go get an oil change, and I know at the bottom of every single one of their emails is 20% off service. Take the extra step. Hit your service drive.
Sure.
Find the ones that it's coming up on that point. I'm not saying every single time, but when he says add value, send them an email that says, look, we know you've got an oil change coming up, or we know that you need a tire rotation. I'll tell you what, come in and do a tire rotation, we'll do your oil change for $10.
Right, and that's simple.
Something to entice me to come in. I know what I'm going to pay if I'm just going to get an oil change, but if you tell me, look, if you come in, we know you need to get your tires rotated, and you kind of say, well, for another $15, we'll do your oil change. It's not going to be whatever it normally costs. I'm coming in, and I'm a millennial. I don't like going at 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning to get my car worked on, but I will.
You gotta do it.
If I'm enticed to do it, I'll do it. I'll wake up early and go do it. Yes, to save those few extra dollars. And especially in this day and age where couponing is such a huge, huge thing, to the point that I'm an IT manager, and to the point that I constantly have to clean my relatives' computers off because they think that every couponing website's toolbar that goes on Internet Explorer is the safest thing in the world. Let's not even go there.
But let's think about the logic behind this. Like, that was a perfect, tangible example of why this is important and how it's supposed to look like. So let's think about, okay, so if you're one of the people who said just now, like, okay, yeah, let's add value, that's kind of a really intangible thing that's not really an actionable business method that you could put into practice. Well, let's look at this example. That was a tangible example of value. Ask the question, why was that valuable? Why did he care if that was valuable? It was valuable to him because, well, for a couple of reasons. It saved you money. It saved you time potentially because, you get some contact information, you can reach out, book an appointment, which is something you may already do anyway, but now you know that you're saving money, which is important to you.
I'll tell you one other thing, because we're running out of time. And this actually is not even in the automotive world. Not even in it. It's a church. If you ever want to look them up, it's called Elevation Church. They are based out of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Huge.
I love their band. I love their team, everything. I've been to the church actually twice. Once when I was at a conference in North Carolina, and once when I was actually on vacation with my wife. And I loved it. It seems like such an odd thing for me to reference a church when it comes to, I guess you could say quote unquote customer experience. But, they give you a free shirt, they do all this different stuff. And I'm not going to jump into that because that's not what I'm aiming for. But what was funny is I moved out a year and a half ago. I moved out of my parents' house and finally moved to my own place. And I came over, we do a family night and we kind of rotate whose house is that. And I came over and my mom hands me something from the mail, and it's December. They had actually sent me a birthday card, not a templated card. Like somebody had taken the time to handwrite a card to me for my birthday.
And you could tell the difference between that and like a printed, handwritten card.
Oh no, this was handwritten, and I was
real.
like, "Holy crap, they remembered." You know what that?
And by the way,
know this sounds
how big is that church, by the way?
They have 12 campuses right now. They're expanding to 15. They run 4 services at every single campus.
Like how many people you think go there?
Roughly each campus can hold, I think, anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500 people per one. So
if they can do
actually,
it at that scale,
I will throw a crazy number at you. They do for the last 3 weeks. They take up all their offerings and everything, and they ask for people to also put money into what they can use for the next year's budget for outreach. And over a 3-week period, they had $7.3 million given just for missions work. So this place is no joke, but they have figured out certain things like that. And Bob Berg actually tells you handwritten thank you cards, handwritten notes, things like that can mean the world to somebody.
It's a value add.
It sets you apart from so many other people. I bought my phone case, and we really have to wrap this up. But I bought my phone case. It's a wood, at the back of it's real wood, and then it's got a rubber edging. It's a company called Carved. Carved.com, I think, and it's CARVD, if I remember correctly. It's not like the full word. But in that package, when I received the phone case, it had really nice packaging, was a handwritten thank you card, and it was signed by their entire team. And I was like, they took their time to have everybody sign it, and it wasn't that digitally printed one. I'm sure at some point in time, everybody sat there with a stack of 100 cards and signed over and over and over and over again, but they took the time to do that, and that value added to a customer, they see it, especially in a world where everybody gets emails. I see every single ad on Instagram, every 5 posts by somebody. You know, I see so many things on Twitter. No matter how many times I tell it, I did not like that stupid ad. It still keeps coming back. Twitter, fix that. Can you get on that? You know, Snap, anywhere. You're just inundated with all these digital ads, and you know, it's almost like we're yearning for mail. You know, physical pieces of mail again, because it's such a rare thing now. It's like,
well, because we know how easy and how little effort it takes to make a digital ad. I've done design work for ads before. I've not only done the design work, I've activated campaigns, I've run the whole deal before. Like, and even if you haven't done that, even if you're not a marketer and you haven't done that, people have this sense, they kind of understand that digital is cheap. Not just in the sense that literally digital is cheap. If you're a marketer, like digital is really cheap for you to do, which is great. That's why a lot of people do it, and it is important. But it's cheap in the sense that it's easy to do. It takes hardly any effort. If you have a good designer, they can crank out stuff very rapidly, very quickly. You can just click a button, activate, target your group. It's not personal. It's easy. So there's a cheapness to it in that sense. Yeah. With something like that, it's not cheap, not only because you actually had to print something up and that's expensive, but it's not cheap because you know that people put their time in it. As you said, you know at some point, somebody sat down, signed a whole bunch of these cards. That means something. That speaks to the type of organization that is filled with people who are willing to take time to do that. That is action that reflects the fact that you care about your customers. That's really what it is.
So, on the screen, you can follow us at JAM_ATN. You can find us on that. Also, we definitely want to hear from you guys. Send us your ideas, your topics, your comments, your concerns. Will, Mikey, I know that, you know, it seems like I changed clothes when we shot, but, you know, the way that we work is we shoot a few episodes at a time. Obviously, we're not live because you guys all know I'm the guy that's running the show, technically on the interwebs. But find out, you know, I believe we are a digital dealer technically right now as you guys are watching this. So tune in next week, because whether or not you guys voted on that poll is indicative of the fact of whether that mustache is here next week.
That's true.
But email us at jam@autotainmentnetwork.com. Send us your comments, your feedback. Find us on social media. You can find us just about everywhere. On that note, I am Michael Cherub.
And this is Mikey Okendo.
This has been episode 3. And yeah. Stay tuned for next week, because the stuff we're doing Digital Dealer, it's going to be fun.
That's right. Till next time.
We out.
Audio Jungle.
sharing tools and breaking rules. Who's again it, they say it's me, breaking it down for all to see. Keep it simple, keep it clear. The status quo is all I fear.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Who's Your Danny Show, episode number 3. This week could get interesting. We're going to talk about dealer kids, or PhDs. Papa has a dealership. I have several people in my 20 group, whereas the father is trying to bring the son up in the business, or the father is trying to bring the daughter up in the business. I wanted to find out some of the challenges that created for the dealers and their kids, and we all know it can present some problems for us, the employees. But you know what? I can only speak for myself. When I see them coming up the right way, being taught the business the right way, it's encouraging. It's kind of fun, and you'll see some of the perspectives they had. Watch this. Hey, Danny Benitez here. I'm here with some more generational dealers. We got Brad and Rob here. Brad, how's it going?
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for doing this.
Good. Well, hey, I'm glad to do it, and I understand there's going to be some free drinks later, so that's the main reason I'm doing it. They're part of my 20 group, but we really want to talk about generational dealers. You guys work together, father and son. Rob, tell me where your dealership is.
We are located in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. Just a small little town right by North Dakota. So
Okay, so it's nice and warm there.
yeah, you could say that.
Yeah. Okay, well, good. All right, I'm going to start with Brad. Brad, you guys work together quite a bit on a day-to-day basis, would you say?
Yeah, exactly. Yep, we're there every day.
Okay, except for your vacation time, because I know you spend a lot of time away from the store.
Don't get much of that, but yeah, okay.
I'm going to get your opinion, though, Rob. Is that true? Does he spend a lot of time away?
He's there a lot, and we like it actually when he's away, though.
Right.
It's better when he's away.
Perfect. Okay, what are the challenges of working with your dad? First of all, what are all the names that you've heard called you as the kid of the dealer?
Like from other people or from him?
Other people.
Silver Spoon, PhD.
Stands for Papa has dealership.
Yep. I don't know. I've heard them all, but.
Does it present some challenges? Let's first talk about the employees. Does it present challenges with employees? Do you feel like they're looking at you in a different way?
For me, it actually didn't, because he started me out at the bottom, cleaning cars.
Really?
And worked my way up. I wasn't just thrown into a position, so.
How was that 2 weeks?
Best 2 weeks of my life. I kind of want to go back.
I'm kidding. No, that's cool. And I knew that ahead of time, but I wanted you to tell the people that are watching. And so you start off cleaning cars, and then tell me kind of how that progressed quickly.
Then I just started working. I actually started selling cars, did a little bit in the parts department, and then currently I'm a used car buying and sales manager.
Awesome. Great. Okay, so what, he's not listening. So what do you, he doesn't anyway. What are some of the challenges? Do you think he's maybe tougher on you, or kind of how's his view towards you being there? Is he tough on you or what?
There's no doubt about it. He holds me to the highest standard.
Right. When you say no doubt about it, I'm from Texas. What's that mean?
I don't know how to explain it.
Oh, you mean no doubt about it?
Okay. No doubt about it.
Okay, so he does. He's hard on you.
Yep.
In what way?
He's just making me learn the business. I mean, he doesn't want me to fail, and he, took his experiences where he maybe learned the hard way,
right,
and making sure I don't make the same mistakes. So, the standards are way up there, and of course it's a business. Business is business.
Right. All right. Is this a bunch of crap, or is that really the truth?
No, it's probably the truth. It is. It's exactly right. The biggest challenges that we've run into is that you don't want your son to fail. You want them to do a better job than you did. Probably the biggest fault that we have is that we think that because they've been around it, that they should know it all, but so we probably don't train as hard as we should with them. We just expect that they should be able to do it and know it. So sometimes you got to step back and slow down and just say, okay, yeah, let's go through this, because it's not just because, he grew up. I've been in the car business all of his life and the majority of my life, and you just think that okay, yeah, he's been around it, he knows it, but it's not true. You know, again, it's going back, and we do hold them to a higher standard. It's probably not right, but we're tougher on them because I've always said that, you know what, you got a target on your back because who your dad is, so you need to work harder, put in more hours than anybody else. And that's why you get your stripes.
So the standards are higher, but you know, I'll tell you something else that's cool. It's coming to these 20 group meetings, and our 20 group in particular is kind of special in that we have a lot of generational dealers. And so I want you to know, from my standpoint, it's encouraging to look around and see, you know, you guys coming up together, having fun together, learning together. But I want to emphasize what you said is that as the dealer and having your kid there, you expect him to know more than he really does, but he's got to go through the training and get his lumps just like anybody else.
That's exactly right. That's what it is. And what's really fun about the 20 group thing is to watch when you know, they come in and it's a pretty intimidating environment. Right. You have a lot of egos in the room, and you know, a lot of people that want to give their opinion, and then all of a sudden, as you're watching these meetings go on, you know, for the first meeting, second, third, fourth, all of a sudden they're starting to voice their opinion a little bit. They're getting interactive a little bit more, and that's what's fun to watch because they are the future. And
Whitney Houston said that.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? The best thing about it is that they can take the dealerships to the next level because they're very open-minded, where we're probably set in our ways a little bit, especially when it comes to technology.
Can you, man, that's awesome. Do you know the Whitney Houston song, The Greatest Love of All? We believe that children are our future.
Yep.
Could you sing that?
No, because that would just wreck this whole deal that's going on. Not that it's any good right now, but
it was super serious up to that point.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Okay, and let me ask you a question. Do you guys agree that the wavy tube guy is really the secret to high traffic at your dealership?
Of course, who doesn't like the blowy guy? That's what we call him, the blowy guy.
Well, it's kind of becoming a custom on my show. Before we go to the next segment, would you guys help me imitate the wavy tube guy real quick?
Oh, boy, I'm not very good at that. I don't
You've seen it. All right. 1, 2, 3.
We're good.
Hey, back over here. Okay, I'm really going to bust it now. Watch this. Okay, we're back here on the Who's Your Danny show. I'm still at the 20 group, and we're still talking about generational relationships in the car business. Fathers that own dealerships and either sons or daughters that are coming along and learning the business. And first, I'd like to introduce you to Harry. Harry, tell us a little bit about your dealership, kind of the history, and introduce us to your son, and let's just go that way.
All right, Danny. Well, name's Harry Brooks. Started out selling cars about 43 years ago, and was able to work my way all the way up to I could go in debt all by myself about 13 years ago, and bought a Chevrolet store and moved from the city to a more rural country, comfortable environment. And my son joined us. He's worked off and on through high school and college, and he joined us full time about 5 years ago. And you know, it's been a challenge being able to expose him to the different facets of the business, and but it's been a pleasure to see him grow as a person and as a leader.
All right, and so what were the challenges? What was like in your head? You're going, okay, I'm bringing my son in here. I want to make sure that the employees take this the right way. What was kind of your thought process when you started in here?
Well, I think it was the challenges, several challenges. One of the challenges he had is coming along as a dealer son was to earn the respect and the of the other employees. And and he did that. He's got involved. I mean, he started out. He's been a technician. He's been he's done this and that, and he really conquered and learned a lot being the internet and digital manager for us for several years. And that's a challenge. It's also a challenge to somebody that started out, and I've been blessed that I've been in every job. It's a challenge and it's a frustration when people don't know what they don't know. And being he's a millennial, and most of the time they got all the answers.
Yeah. That's right. And we're starting to get some of the real story now. So now enough of that political stuff. Is he harder on you than he is everybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
Slightly.
So you think you're held maybe a little different standard, which is probably okay, because nobody wants to think that, oh, here comes the PhD, Papa has dealership, or here comes the dealer kid, and he's not going to have to earn his way. I mean, he doesn't want that, but you don't want that either. You don't want this some kind of built-in respect. You want to earn it, right?
That's correct. And you were right. He brought me on board, and I've worked at the bottom and in the middle, and learned a lot in the internet department. And now I've kind of backed off, and I'm helping him with the big picture things. And it can be a challenge when all the good ideas are his and all the bad ones are yours.
That's a benefit to having your kid in there, is somebody to blame all your screw-ups on, right?
Right. And your name's on the front of the building, so there can be confusion on who owns what and who has say-so. So,
you ever use your leverage there and like, hey, all right, we've kind of gone back and forth, but maybe you've noticed my last name?
Yeah, every so often, I'll do that.
Yeah, it's Brooks. See, does that sound familiar, right? It's Brooks on the name.
We're a team.
That's right. We are a team. So what are some challenges in mindset? I mean, you're obviously younger, and you said you worked kind of in the digital area. He's been in the car business a long time, came from more traditional deal. Has there been kind of some friction there where you guys had different ideas?
Well, I think that, the business it changes every year, and it's changed since I began in it, and so it's a challenge to try to keep up and learn at the same time. 2012 was my first year as the internet manager, and that was really when all the changes were occurring in the digital world. So, trying to gauge the changes and keep up, and as well as learn the business at the same time has been a challenge for me.
Right. Well, it's a balance, and really, and you'll learn this as you keep going. I'm a 30-year guy, and it is balance because you get inundated with some new technologies, but you can lean on your dad here that has some of those values and some of those things that he's seen long-term, that's worked throughout the years. So it's a balance, and it's a give and take. It's a relationship, whether it be father-son or somebody who's been in business a long time and somebody that's relatively fresh. It just so happens you're related, but I think that's kind of a lesson we learned, that it's about balance. All right, this is Danny. I'm back here. We're at the bar at our 20 group meeting. I got Dave and Tracy here with me, and we're talking about generational dealers and dealers that are working with their family, and kind of the fun part of that and the stuff that maybe not so fun. But Dave, first of all, tell us about your dealership.
Well, he's got a small dealership, been in business since 1960, and our dad ran it till 1982. I became the dealer there in 1982. So it's been a great experience. It's been different throughout the years, and with a lot more family in it, it's more challenging, actually.
That's a nice way of saying it's a pain in the ass. No, he has a lot of family in there, and Tracy is his daughter. And Tracy, you're doing mainly digital stuff, internet stuff?
Yes, correct, BDC.
Okay, so you're running the BDC, and Dave's like one of the nicest guys. He's got to be pretty easy to work with, right?
Oh, of course. When he's there, yeah, he's great.
Oh, when he's there.
Too easy. I got to get mean.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, Dave sometimes works via Florida, right? You have a place in Florida in
Naples, Florida.
Naples. Oh,
yep.
Yes, we went by there. Fun place, and he loves to travel, and he actually takes care of kind of all of our travel stuff, and he knows all the great places to go. So, so you guys have, how long have you been there, Tracy?
2 years, if you don't include the time when I was young.
Okay, so what kind of grunt work did you do when you were younger?
Well, I started off as a receptionist throughout high school, and then in college I was a porter for 4 years, and that has to go down as one of my all-time favorite jobs.
Sweet.
Let me say something about that if I could. I always wanted my girls not to be slackers, okay, because I've seen some other people slack a little bit. So they were out washing cars, and that was their job, to keep the lot clean,
right.
her sister and her. And I'd go out there and I'd show them, I'd bend over, I'd look at the tires, look down low, and I'd say, girls, you missed a spot. And they did a great job. One day, because I had some other family members from the other side of the family, they'd come in, get their check at 16 years old for $4.50 a week,
right,
and not do anything, wash their car on Saturday and leave. So, point being, the girls came in my office on one hot day, her sister and her, and it was 90 degrees out, and then they said, Dad, we want to have a water in your office. Do you care if we sit down? I said, only if you checked out. And I said that so somebody walking by would hear it. I don't know, they never did get it,
right.
though. But the daughters were upset at me, but I was trying to make a statement.
That's a story I do say over and over to people I meet, because it didn't just happen that one time. He said it every time we stopped and talked. Did you punch out first? And it really was great as far as teaching us work ethic, and it's something that still has been ingrained in my mind and my sister's mind, and has helped us be good workers now.
Just one other quick story. The third daughter was a non-worker, a beautiful girl, but she hated work. So I had a really hard time getting her to come to work. So one day she screwed up at home. I said, Stephanie, you're going to have to come to work. So we had a used car manager who did not know my daughter Stephanie, and he asked her to move this car and get in it. She was just 16, and she didn't know what a Ford was. So anyway, he said, you're fired. And she went home so happy.
I bet that wasn't, I bet she didn't get off the hook, right?
No, she did. She's very fortunate. She got her teaching degree and married a great guy, and has a great family. So everything turned out fine.
Well, that's good. Well, I'll tell you that it's encouraging to see that the keys just aren't given over, to the relatives. They have to come in and earn it. I mean, for a porter for 4 years, I was a porter for about 4 weeks. Then I got fired. I had to come back and go to a different dealership. So you did much better than me. You're a better porter than me. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It's encouraging to see this next generation of people coming up through, and it's even more encouraging to see that they're having to work their way through it. And even if they get called PhDs, Papa has dealership, or what are some of the other...
a dealer brat.
Dealer brat, okay. Well, we're going to go now with Dave and dealer brat Tracy, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you.
This thing right here is for the IS-20G. And this thing right here is by my man Danny B. What they call you?
Who's your Danny? They say it's me. Been doing cars since '83. I'm busting fools and teaching schools, sharing tools and breaking rules. Who's your Danny? They say it's me. Breaking it down for all to see. Keep it simple, keep it clear. Status quo is all I fear.
Someone's trying to get it right. Get it right. Everybody's working for the weekend. Everybody needs a little romance. Here on a beautiful Sunday. Think bigger, doesn't sleep, it doesn't rest. We got to get this show made. It's kind of cold outside, so let's go in and start shooting. I think I'm early. Well, hey everybody, my name's Jason Stum, your host here on Think Bigger, the show that inspires you to think beyond today and tomorrow so you can achieve your biggest ambitions. And we're back. We're on episode number 2. We didn't get canceled. Hooray! And today we've got something really exciting lined up. I'm going to be joined by Joe Chura, CEO of Launch Digital Marketing and Dealer Inspire. And Joe has an amazing story that he's going to share with you because it wasn't all that long ago that Joe was working on the assembly line for Ford Motor Company. And that story of how he went from that place to this place, the place you see here today, it's a lesson in the think bigger mindset. And I can't wait for you to hear his story. I've only heard parts of it, so being able to sit down with Joe and really pick his brain and learn the things he's actually done that have worked for him, that have helped him grow Launch Digital Marketing and Dealer Inspire to some of the most respected automotive digital marketing companies in the country today. I'm pumped up, I'm ready to go. So you know what, let's go do it.
Jason, what are you doing here, man?
What are
on
you
a
doing?
Sunday? That's crazy.
What's up, brother? How are you?
Good to see you.
I see you too. Thanks for coming over.
I'm excited to be here. Wait, we have to do the Top Gun. Come on.
Okay. Let's do this. Let's come over here and talk to the one and only Mr. Joe Chura. So thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate that, man.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Cheers. And for the
What is
record,
that on your wrist?
oh, this is a Microsoft Band 2 fitness
Shocking.
tracker.
It's Microsoft.
I did that just for you.
Does that
what,
work with
what are
Apple?
you wearing there?
It's Apple Watch.
I've never heard of it. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, so thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for
Oh,
having
I was
me.
going to say, for the record, you didn't ask to come on the show. I asked you to come on the show. For full
That's right,
transparency.
yeah.
Okay, full transparency. So
Just trying to avoid not being the star of our own show.
right,
But
right. But hey, it's
it was
episode-
inevitable.
It was going to happen at some point in time. We were going to need, a layup episode, right?
Might as well do it now.
Let's do it. Let's get out of the way. But seriously though, you have a really interesting story. I've only heard bits and pieces of it, through my short time here and through how we've been connected in the past. So I don't know the whole story, but what I do know is that you've been living a think bigger mindset. It seems like a long time. So what I really want to do is take it all the way back. What was life like for Joe Chura in 1998?
I had a job in downtown Chicago. Found out I was going to be a dad. I lived not too far from the Chicago assembly plant. My friend's parents and a bunch of others that I knew were working at the plant, and it was a good job. Knowing I was going to be a father, I decided to do the responsible thing, and I applied for a job there, and one thing led to another, and I was working at the Ford plant on the assembly line.
So you're there, you're working on the line. Was that at the time where you're just thinking, I'm just trying to get by? Or even then, were you thinking beyond where you were right there?
I had no idea what I was doing. I would lie and say I did. I was just trying to really do the right thing. And I think that's kind of the mindset I've always lived is, if you do the right thing, good things happen. So my first day there, I was brought to a job in the trim department on the assembly line. And I'll never forget this. I was, they have these trainers and they show you how to build a part of the car. So in my instance, I put on the B-pillar, a door rubber, screwed in the seat belt, and this is the 1998 Taurus. So the Tauruses were flying. It was the most popular car, I think, in America at that time. But the one thing I knew very quickly from just watching the atmosphere is you don't stop the line for anything. So you just have to learn really under fire. And then I was I barely made it to lunch. I was just sweating. I had so much anxiety because I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do this. And then finally, like near lunchtime, I was like, oh, this isn't that bad, right? Just like anything, once you get used to a job, it becomes easier. So then right after lunch, the trainer comes up to me and says, now I'm going to teach you the second half of the job. I was only doing 50% of it. So at that time, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that was only 50% of the job, so I would have to do double the work by the amount of, when a car got to my station. Mm-hmm. By the third day, I was all on my own, if not sooner. And I was, the first thing I did is I was like, what, will they pay for me to go to school? What are my benefits? At the time, I had left Eastern Illinois, so I had, a semester one semester under my belt. And immediately I signed up for, I think, South Suburban College just to keep going at it. I never really wanted to sit still. I got pretty fast at building these cars. So as I was going to school, I developed this system where I could read a textbook or read part of a textbook, so really a paragraph. So I'd have my book open at my station. And by the way, don't buy a 98 Taurus for this reason.
I was going to say that.
A few years later, I was able to graduate magna cum laude. So from there, I was just trying to make any impression I could with anyone I possibly could in that whole plant. And Peter Lawson, who was the plant manager at the time, I would schedule meetings with him, and I would put together these PowerPoint presentations to talk about Ford vehicles, and I would put together these marketing plans. And I wasn't even in the marketing and sales division, so at the time I thought he was somehow connected to marketing, but later I found out in my career that that really the plant manager doesn't talk to marketing and sales that much. But it just kind of goes back to that think bigger mindset. Like, there's a 100% chance something won't happen unless you try, right? So like by me going to his office, I mean, who knew who he knew?
And so some of the stuff we talked about on episode 1 is letting people know that you're after something. If you don't tell people, you never know who's going to have a connection that's going to get you to that next step. And if you keep it all to yourself, and if you don't tell anyone what you want to do, that you have big ambitions, big ideas, how are you ever going to get there?
Which one day, one of the engineers came up to me and said, hey, listen, I saw a job opening for marketing and sales. And I said, really? That sounds fantastic. He's like, I think you would be great for it.
Did you get that job? Were you able to get that?
Well, so what happened is, as a UAW employee, I couldn't even apply for that job. So Ford had this system where they would post internal jobs, but because I was a UAW worker, there was no way for me to apply for that job and have the right ID or something like that. So the gentleman that told me, I'm forever indebted to, his name is Willis Chin. And Willis is the one that told me about this position. And at the time, I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, well, I can't even apply for it. There was no contact number, there's nothing like that. Everything's this internal jargon, and I didn't know what it meant. So a couple days passed, and I go up to Willis, and I just said, hey, that job you were talking about, can I apply for it under your name? And then just right away say, hey, I'm not Willis Chin. And he said, sure, I don't care, go for it. And I did. And I interviewed for the position, and long story short, I got it. And I would have never got it if I just accepted that barrier that was in front of me and just went with it and said, well, that's too bad, right?
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting, Joe, because it's a common trait you see with a lot of big thinkers is when they encounter an obstacle, they find a creative way around it, because sometimes you can't climb over it, but maybe you can get around it. And that's exactly what you did by using Willis to apply for the job, a job that you got. Mm-hmm. So then what happens next? Now you're marketing sales. Where does it go from here?
So I was calling on, my first position was a select zone manager. So that meant I called on smaller Ford dealers, and I was across the Wisconsin region. Well, the Chicago region was Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, and Indiana, or parts of each. And so I called on, I think I had like 60 dealers at the time, my first zone, and just had a huge passion for it, and I had a lot of respect because I came from the plant. But what happened is that at the time Ford was starting to push out their website program. So they had like these co-op programs and so forth. And I became the de facto digital guy for the region. I was kind of the guy that answered a lot of questions and so forth. So it was just like this. I felt so blessed to have that opportunity, you know, and coming from the plant, I couldn't believe I was getting paid to do that job, to be honest with you. And I thought any day, like, I'd be going back to the assembly line. Like, I didn't, you know, it was kind of crazy going from a UAW Ford assembly line worker to now a corporate employee.
We're still missing a couple pieces of the story here. Where did the opportunity present itself next?
So there was an issue there for me personally, for personal growth. Is, you know, I was young, ambitious. I felt to really get anywhere in the company, I'd have to move. And I didn't really care at the time to move outside of the Chicago region, but I didn't want to leave Ford, and I knew I needed to do something else. So I got my real estate license, and I did that.
Just went out one weekend and got your real estate license?
I had an opportunity to meet some realtors, and I was like, I can sell houses too on the side, and it was a great, you know, contract type job that was very flexible, that would earn extra income. So I went to night school to get my real estate license, and I had like 6 listings. I closed, 8 homes in 6 months. At the time when I was doing that, I told the regional manager. He knew. He thought it was great. I think that what ended up happening is they didn't know how much I was selling. And so I was called in the office at one point, and they said, they pulled up my website, and I guess other zone managers weren't happy that I was selling homes.
It wasn't taking away from your numbers at work, was it? What was behind that, do you think?
It just leaves open an excuse for, hey, you're not answering an email in 2 minutes. Oh, he must be doing something, sure. Right? So I think it was just that kind of stuff. Gotcha. But really, I mean, in terms of my performance, it got better, if anything else, because I worked harder. Right. To prove that, hey, I can do both of these things.
What came next? Where did you go from there?
Well, that's when I would say I really got in the car business, because I was offered a job as a GM of a Ford store in outstate Illinois.
General manager. Was that had to have been an eye-opening experience, man, to be on the other side of it now?
It reminded me of working on the line. It was crazy. I have so much respect for GMs, and I was handed the keys literally, and walked in there with little to no training. I mean really nothing. And I remember someone bringing me a deal. It was a 4-square, and I was supposed to sign off on it. And I looked at it, and I had no clue if it was like a loser or if I was making money on this deal. Like, no clue at all.
You're the best manager to work forever.
But you can't come in as GM and not know that, right? So I was like, yeah, you know, looks great. So it was just completely nuts. And I learned, I didn't have the passion. Sure. I had nothing, I didn't even do digital marketing at all. Like, the group wasn't a believer in it. They were a big believer in direct mail pieces, and I was just trying to learn how to run the business. So I had the opportunity to leave. A friend of mine in the Chicago area, he needed help running his BDC. So I came in and was offered a position there, and really just kind of refined the processes, looked at what he was doing, analyzed things, and we ended up just hitting a home run. I mean, our internet sales went up 300% just by implementing processes, everything I learned from being a GM to when I was at Ford, and then having a marketing and digital strategy around it. So I was building websites.
So let's talk about that for a minute. What kind of websites were you building?
Yeah, so it really started with SEO. So when I was a kid, I would be really into programming, but there wasn't websites. There was no web then, right? But there was you could code things so I'd code on the Commodore. I mean, when I could build websites, it really started with a drive to learn search engine optimization. So I was really fascinated with it. So when I was mowing the lawn, I was listening to SEO 101 podcast. When I was doing the dishes in the house, I was listening to someone talk about SEO. So I did all these things, and I'm like, you know what? It's great to have that knowledge, but let's see it. Let me practice it. So I built a website called FordEmployeePlan.com. Sure enough, I got 15,000, 20,000 visits a month on it. was ranked organically for, I was beating Ford at the time for like Ford employee discounts. I'm still like ranked in the top 10, and that website's been up for years. I haven't even touched it.
So we've gone through about 12 years of your history here, and you see the same traits reoccurring, and that's what's really impressive is that you're always working as hard as you can. You're using your time wisely as best you can, and you're always trying to get better and smarter. And as you do that, as you're being true to yourself and dedicated to yourself, new opportunities are presenting themselves for you to take advantage of. And then when you get those opportunities, you take advantage of them.
There was also a pivotal moment too that I always wanted to do my best for whoever I was working for. I just always and I would put on headphones at night. I would go on lynda.com and I would watch Lynda programs, which is, by the way, an awesome resource. And my wife would be watching reality TV. So just would put in so many extra hours outside of the 9 to 5. And then one day she's like, why don't you put a little effort into yourself? And, I don't think she meant that in any way, but, take some of all the extra stuff you're doing. I don't care that you're doing it, but really just learn something for yourself. And that really was pivotal to me to think like, yeah, I probably should do that. And I didn't, I was always doing it for someone else.
Right. So what did you do for yourself?
So, and then a friend of mine who worked in the auto space, he had a client that just really wanted to learn SEO. And she said, hey, I know you know a lot about it. You want to do a consulting gig out there with me. And next thing you know, we're on a plane to Boulder, Colorado. And I spent 2 days, I had no idea I knew this much information about SEO, but I spent 2 days training the staff at Fisher Auto on search engine optimization. And at the end of that 2 days, Mark Brady, who was the marketing manager there at the time, he turned to me and Matt, and he said, hey, what are your packages? And we looked at each other and smiled, and we're like, we don't have packages. There's no company, And then the light bulbs went off. It's like websites, SEO, learning automotive retail, being at the plant, and all of these things, being a programmer and all of these things, and the passion and drive. And I said, man, we could really build a cool company.
From the line to this point in 2011, everything that you had learned at every previous stop influenced the next thing. And then it's like, ta-da!
I could have said
here
no.
it is.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. You say, you make, when there's lemons, make lemonade. Right?
Yeah.
So really started off Launches just as an SEO company, and then a website development, like niche website development company. That was because those were my skills. Mm-hmm. That's what I had.
So how many people in the company at this point in time?
So at this point, it was just me, Matt, and then Jamie was a contractor. So really, there was hardly anyone. And then in 2011, I think total we had 8 people at the end of the year.
So you tripled your growth in just a year to 8 people, from 3 to 8. Not too bad.
Yeah.
Not too bad. So you're an SEO company. You're a digital company. Yeah. What is the next transition? At what point in time did you realize that there's more that you could do?
Really, SEM was our next play, and that's because a friend of mine soliciting Riverview Ford to be an SEM provider for us, and I took him up on it, and him and I kind of hit it off and became friends. So he took over the SEM side of Launch, and so we had SEM, SEO, website development, and then it naturally turned into email marketing, social video production.
That's some serious stuff in terms of what you're adding on. An 8-person company to here we are today. How many employees?
We have 106 Launch employees today.
100?
Not including any contractors. And we have about 20 contractors.
So Launch is part of the story, but then obviously you saw a need at some point in time for dealership website development.
The most time that our company spent on things was dealing with other website vendors and companies. We didn't have full control. Not to say we didn't get results from that, we did, but were we maximizing them? At the same time, were we getting enough data to provide answers to dealers to say, hey, what's working, what's not working, right? So we had this idea, and we had a client come to us, a launch client, and he said, hey, you know, would you want to build me a website? And myself and Mark, who is my partner at Dealer Inspire, we built the first iteration of Dealer Inspire ourselves in WordPress. And crazy enough, his leads went up by like 200%. It was fast because it was just one standalone site. It wasn't on a global platform. Right. It really became obvious to say, hey, instead of spending a lot of time working on these other websites, why don't we work on our own websites? So we do have two completely separate companies. 2013 is when Dealer Inspire started, and even last year we had 15 employees with Dealer Inspire, and today we have over 60 just dedicated. 90% of them are engineers. We only have 2 salespeople in the whole company.
So 2011 launched digital marketing, 2013 Dealer Inspire. Here we are in 2016, and you've seen just massive growth. I mean, it really is truly. I mean, it's an amazing story, and I'm sure the people who are watching, you know, are inspired by that. But let's do this. Let's give the audience something that they can take away, because I know all of us. I know I do. I bet you the guys recording this do. We all have these big ideas. How do we get them out of our head? How do we get them into reality?
Anything you know, or any obstacle that could be perceived to be in your way, and that's a key word there, perceived, is that you can get around it. You can think bigger. You can think around anything. But second and most importantly is something that I learned over time, and this is the hard thing about this, is like nothing happens overnight. Like the story, yeah, it's good, but it took so many hours and days of working on something, never knowing if it was going to transpire to anything, right? And I remember just like being in my home, like I just gave a couple examples of a few times I was listening to podcasts and something. It was thousands of hours. If you want to be the best, you got to work harder than the next person. You could be the smartest guy in the world. It's not going to really apply. I mean, there's countless stories. I'm no exception. I'm no one special. But there's so many entrepreneurs and people that, you know, things just start happening. Yeah. In their life because they've put in that effort over time. And that is the biggest takeaway, is that whatever journey you're on, if that's to lose weight, if that's to start a business, if that's to be a better employee, be a better spouse, father, whatever it is, it's the consistency that matters. You're not going to get a reaction from an action to have something profound happen in your life. It just does not happen. It's true.
I don't want to say anything else. I want that to linger. Makes sense to me, man.
Dude.
All right, brother, man. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Really appreciate it, my man. Good times.
Great seeing you.
Oh, thanks for coming in on Sunday.
Yeah, it was good seeing you.
And for you guys, thanks for tuning into this episode of Think Bigger. Really hope you enjoyed the show. Stay tuned. Next week, we'll have an all-new guest where we'll be thinking big here on the show. See you guys later.
Welcome to episode number 20. On today's show, learn how to take control of the movie called Life, get productivity tracking guidance, and take away some low-hanging fruit.
When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A car salesman.
Said no one ever.
Hi, I'm Patrick Hennessy.
And I'm Courtney Hennessy.
Welcome to the Be Less Typical in Car Sales podcast, a real-life account of the car business that breaks the perception of what it's like to be a car sales professional. During the show, we're going to take you into the lives and minds of those who have found success. So ignite your passion and get ready to learn effective hacks to streamline your success and boost your income.
So, is that your pitch?
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
It's the movie called, My Life. And in that movie, I'm the starring role. I'm the director. I'm the producer. I'm the screenwriter. I mean, it's my movie. And, if I don't like the movie, if I don't like the plot, I got one person to blame. I'm the director. I'm the producer. I was a screenwriter. Who are you going to blame? It's my movie. So, when you really believe that and accept that, it transforms everything. It absolutely changes everything about what you'll do next.
Before we talk about the movie called Your Life, let's rewind to the beginning of Jonathan Dawson's journey, to when he was a little boy.
Early on in our conversation with Jonathan, it became evident that he was less typical. This is something that was quite apparent at a young age.
Well, I was raised with an attitude that most, kids didn't have. I started reading Tony Robbins material when I was 12. And so from an early age, if you will, I thought differently than most. And it translated into lots of new behaviors that most people didn't have.
By age 15, he started college. At 17, he's moved out of his parents' home and he's spending a portion of his free time as a door-to-door Dish Network salesman. By 18, he was a real estate investor.
I'd say that's a less typical start.
It is. Jonathan knew he wanted to be an entrepreneur from the time he was 13 years old. As a summer job, he worked on a residential construction site. The crew was charged with replacing the footings or foundations on homes. Specifically, Jonathan's job was to pull poured cement through wooden tracks underneath raised houses. This cement would form the new foundation.
And this summer job would form the foundation with which Jonathan would find inspiration from.
I imagine this young, gangly boy army crawling underneath a house that's been jacked up. He's covered in mud and he's dodging dead animals in the tight crawl space he's working in. And he's probably thinking, why did I agree to do this? But that's when he realized he wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Where I looked out from underneath the house and I saw the owner of the company in his khaki pants and his hard hat with his clipboard, and people covered in mud and covered in cement and covered in just nastiness would run up to him. He'd point at a clipboard, point at something else, and they'd go run off, and I didn't understand what he was saying because I was underneath the house. But I had to deal with spiders and dead animals and all this nonsense underneath this house. And I remember looking out from underneath the house and seeing him and saying to myself, that's what I want to be. And that day at lunch break, while I was eating a sandwich with him, I said, I'll keep coming back under one condition. He said, what's that? I said, you have to teach me how to become you.
And there began Jonathan's first mentor relationship.
I've had mentors ever since then. One of the things that he taught me to do was to seek out wise counsel from people who had what I wanted. And so from that point forward, I've always had people that I've gone to my whole life.
If you've listened to previous episodes of Be Less Typical, you know that Jonathan is a mentor to some of our previous guests. People like Bill Stout and Kenny Landrum. They've worked with him, they've learned from him, just as Jonathan has learned from those who have gone before him.
What's interesting, though, or maybe it's not, is that Jonathan didn't start out wanting to be part of the automotive industry.
But yeah, my story starts off as most probably car people, I assume, which is I never wanted to be in the car business, had no desire to be a car salesman.
So as it turns out, this is a typical thing we hear from most of our less typical car sales professionals.
It is. To give a bit of a background, Jonathan moved to Emporia, Kansas because his wife got a scholarship to study and a job at Emporia State University. He didn't know anybody there, no friends, no family, so the day after they moved, he went to the bank to open an account and figure out what he was going to do with his life, and to fill his bank account. And that's when he had what he calls an encounter with God.
As close as I can say to hearing the voice of God in my life, I had an encounter at the bank where I heard, go sell cars. And I say I heard that because that thought would have never originated in my own brain. I have no reason to think that. I hated the only car experience I ever had buying a car. I hated, and the salesperson tried to lie to me, and and I had no desire to be part of that industry. So that being said, this penetrating thought, go sell cars, is what got me in the business. And I started out at the Toyota, Dodge, Chrysler, Plymouth, Jeep store. There was 5 salespeople. I was number 6. The salespeople thought we were flooding the floor by hiring me. They didn't think that we needed a 6th man, but that's what I was. I was the 6th man, and it was a small store in a small town. And there was a salesman there who'd been salesman of the year for 12 years in a row. When I started selling cars there, these guys had been there, many of them 10 plus years. One guy, I think the shortest stint was like 8 years. And then there was me, the new guy.
Not surprisingly, the salespeople at the dealership take bets on how long the newbie will last.
And so they actually had a bet as to how long I would last. They had a pool going to see if I would last 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. And of course, I outlasted them. So they lost their money.
But barely. It's not easy for Jonathan starting out.
It was a tough deal. It was very tough. There was no traffic. There was no training. In fact, my 3rd month, which was technically because I started August 12th, my first day on the job, I sold 10 cars in 12 days. I thought I was King Kong. The next month, I set a goal of 20 because if you can sell 10 in 12 days, you should be able to sell 20 in a whole month. So I set a goal of 20. I only sold 12 cars that month. So I backed my goal down to 15, thinking, okay, I'll get a little more realistic. I sold 3 cars, and I got fired.
Yikes. And before he gets fired, he gets a paycheck with a sticky note on it.
A story, he tells us, he's a bit embarrassed by.
After my 3rd month, I got a check for 0.00 with a sticky note attached that said, you owe us money unless you're fired.
Oh boy. As if matters couldn't get worse.
That's when I heard the overhead, my name page to the owner's office. I walked in and he fired me. He said I was sucking up his air conditioning and I was wasting space.
Ouch.
Ouch is right. However, in the face of adversity, Jonathan makes a stand. He tells the owner,
and I said, listen, I sold you 10 cars in 12 days. I sold 12 cars the month. After that, I know I only sold 3 last month, but I don't know what happened, but I'll never let it happen again. I've never failed at anything. I'm going to figure this out.
Then he walks behind the dealership and has what he calls a come to Jesus moment, which starts with an argument.
Where I had a conversation with God and I said, I don't know why I'm here. I hate this place. They hate me. I hate this job. I don't know why I'm here. And again, as clear as I can say I've ever been directed by God, he said, it's all your fault. And I argued with him because I thought obviously he wasn't paying attention.
But he loses the argument.
But he won the argument and convinced me that it was all my fault. And that was the beginning for me when I took full and complete responsibility.
And this is where his real car sales journey begins.
And I said, from this day forward, I'll become the number 1 salesperson at this dealership, number 1 salesperson in this town, and I will change the way people buy cars. And that was the solemn oath promise I made to God that day. And I said, I'm going to figure this thing out. And that was when I created my path or my journey for discovering the psychology of selling.
He made this commitment, and it wasn't long before he accomplished his goal. He became the number 1 salesman, sold more vehicles for list price than anyone else at the dealership, and eventually the owner asked him to take on a training role.
Apparently I did enough things, not only did it right, but I did it in a way that I had earned the respect of my peers and the respect of my supervisors. They were willing to learn from me.
To train the same guys that had made bets on how long he'd last in the business. This reminds me of a blog post I recently wrote on adversity. How we react and leverage adversity is a key indicator of someone who's a high potential, or high pot as we like to call them. Not only did Jonathan accomplish his goal, but he did it with integrity and in a way that was respectful.
Just because you sell the most cars doesn't mean you're respected. Those two things don't always go hand in hand. In fact, I've worked with a few guys that sell 30 or more cars a month, but they definitely don't have the respect of their managers or many of their team members.
So that's how Jonathan got into the car business. Today, he's the owner of Sellcology, automotive sales training, speaking, and consulting.
Sellcology, again, it's a hybrid of selling and psychology. So selling through psychology is what Sellcology is all about.
He believes in selling through principles and psychology versus through process or mimicking personality traits.
Fundamentally, what I believe is that there are certain principles. And if you follow those principles, you can have success. Success leaves clues in the form of principles. And so my focus has been on the psychology and the principles of sales, trying to teach salespeople, managers, dealers that I work with how to think from the principle-based approach rather than a personality or process alone. Not that you don't need both. You still have to have a personality, you have to have a process. But I think principles ultimately is what makes it successful.
We agree.
Psychology principles are based on humans, so regardless of what industry you serve, if you apply the same selling principles embedded in psychology, they will work.
And once you understand those principles and apply them, it works. Because, psychology works on humans. So as long as your audience is a human, you should be all right.
Just to be clear, Jonathan doesn't have a degree in psychology. He's learned these principles through practice.
My foundation in psychology was really earned through what they call the School of Hard Knocks.
This is my kind of guy. Although I'm a firm believer in a college degree, your experience and who you know really teach you more than any professor could.
I was always fascinated by what makes people decide to trust you and like you. And so I just started my own personal study, read a lot of books, and pounded a lot of pavement, knocked on a lot of doors.
Jonathan pulls from his experience in Hard Knocks education to lay out the top 3 things he recommends if you want to set yourself up for success.
You got to be willing to plant some seeds. You got to be willing to let a season come and go so you can reap a harvest. So some of my advice would be more directed towards here's how you think a little bit longer term to really set up your success. And that would be things like tracking and organizing their day effectively. So teaching them how to set a proper daily schedule and how to track their daily activities and results.
Something we've heard time and time again from top performers. We've talked about schedules in several episodes. A few of our favorites include Bill Stout, Part 1, Episode 18, and Victor Montoya, Episode 15.
Since we talked scheduling before, let's focus on tracking. Jonathan says the first thing you need to track is...
I would say you have to start tracking immediately. You have to track how many total conversations you have with non-employees. So physically at the premises, I want to know how many times a day do you talk to somebody who doesn't work for the company?
Okay, that seems like a pretty easy item to track.
It does. What's next?
Then you follow that tracking up by asking the next question. Of all the people that you talked to, how many of them were technically eligible to be sold or prospected from?
Let's break that down. Who would be considered an eligible prospect?
What that means is I may have a conversation with the UPS guy who stops to drop off or pick up packages. Well, I'm going to track that as a conversation that I had with a UPS guy. Now, that UPS guy, if he's bought from the dealership before and currently works with Bob, well, then I talked to the guy, but I can't count him as an opportunity for myself because he belongs to Bob.
Okay, that makes sense.
But suppose I ask that same UPS guy, hey, if you were ever going to be in the market for a car or send a friend or family member into the dealership, is there anybody here you would work with? And he says, no, I really don't have anybody here. Well, then that one UPS guy becomes, for me, an opportunity.
So once you have the numbers tracked, the people you talk to, and your eligible prospect opportunities, what do you do with those numbers?
So I tracked the ratios of my conversations to opportunities. How many total conversations, how many of those resulted in possible opportunities.
These ratios provide you with a track record, substantiation for how you're spending time throughout the day, and they help you stay focused on the task at hand, selling cars.
What else should salespeople be tracking?
Timeout. One quick note. To get a free job aid with all of the action items Jonathan recommends throughout this episode, go to belesstypical.com/Dawson or text the word Dawson, DAWSON, to the number 44222 and opt in. We'll send you a printable version you can start using today. Just go to belesstypical.com/Dawson or text the word Dawson to the number 44222 and opt in. It's easy. Now back to the show.
Okay, he goes through these quick, so get ready.
And then, of course, you go through the road of the sale. So you track the total number of times you show a car, the total number of times you drive a car, total number of times you present an offer to do business, total number of times the customer says yes, total number of times that you deliver that sale. So in each of those categories, I want to know the ratios between each stage.
This exercise not only gives you discipline, but it also provides a pretty clear picture of your productivity. I love it. Okay, so tracking is the first thing Jonathan recommends doing if you're new or ready to step up your game. What's the second?
Is to get very, very comfortable with technologies and social media tools and applications and learn how to use those as a means of communicating with your audience.
We couldn't agree more. And a piece of advice we preach about all the time.
So I would say, if you're on social, clean up your act. Make sure that your site is clearly communicating your professional brand and image that you want to represent to the marketplace.
You need to own your profession and be a professional salesperson. Social is a free tool to ensure everyone in your network knows what you do. If they don't, it's costing you sales. If you don't believe me, go back to episode number 1 where we talked to Amy Gers. In the episode, I interviewed a friend of mine who had just bought a car without realizing that a longtime friend worked at the dealership she bought from. And she didn't buy her car from him. Why? Because she didn't know he worked there, even though she's friends with him on social. That's a shame.
Agreed. Moving on, what's Jonathan's number 3 recommendation?
And then the third thing I would ask him to do is become a student of the business.
What exactly does he mean, student of the business?
I like to tell my students, imagine you were shipped off to war. I want 90 days. I want 90 days of disciplined study, which means, forfeit television, forfeit, going to the movies, forfeit stuff. Say to all your friends, I'm going to war for 90 days. I'm shipping out. And commit yourself to just becoming a student of the industry. And there's so many great resources out there that are free.
Not an uncommon message. We heard this from Troy Turbo Spring in episode 9 as well.
Blogs, articles, books, downloadables, audio files, interviews like this. There's so much great resource out there that I would say commit yourself to 90 days of just diving head first in to becoming a professional salesperson in this industry.
And if you do these 3 things, track your productivity, use technology to communicate, and become a student of the business,
there's more things you could do, but if you followed those 3 things, you'd be setting your family up for a sound financial security and sound financial future.
What about if you're 2 years or maybe more into the business? Does all of this still apply? Do you still need to track, leverage technology, and continue to be a student of the business?
We say yes, and so does Jonathan.
Tell me your ratio of total write-ups to total conversations. I don't know. Tell me your ratio of total demo drives. Okay, tell me the total number of conversations you've had last month. I don't know. So, yeah, I would say if you're 2 years in the business and you don't know your numbers, that's a problem.
And the reason most salespeople don't commit and don't track?
But if you don't have numbers, all you have is impressions in your mind, and you become delusional very quickly. I mean, the average salesperson is self-deluded. They have no real clue on what they're doing right or wrong. They don't record themselves. They don't track themselves. But again, the average salesperson doesn't really want to know the truth. That's why they're stuck on average.
No one wants to be average. So to sum it up,
so yeah, I would say some of those principles, whether you're 2 years in or 20 years in, if you can't tell me your numbers, that's a problem. If you're no longer a student of the business, that's a problem. And I don't care if you've been selling cars for 5 years. If I pull up your social media or your YouTube and I see what you've got out there, it's probably a mess. It's probably not cohesive. It's probably not a directed brand. It's probably not a unified marketing message. And I would say you got to clean up your act. So I think it applies.
All great, tactical, actionable advice to get you moving in the right direction.
So what's the biggest obstacle salespeople face?
I would say probably the major obstacle salespeople have is really in their own psychology. And it has to do with kind of the aha moment, the come to Jesus moment that I personally experienced, where I accepted everything completely and 100% is my fault. And the average salesperson, again, doesn't want to believe that that's true. So to give you a practical on that, I would have a very difficult customer who shows up on the lot with a chip on their shoulder. I do everything in my power to stop that person from keeping that chip on their shoulder. They leave with the chip on their shoulder. I still said that was my fault.
This is interesting and less typical than most salespeople's mentality that I know. Let's hear more.
Customer buys down the road and has a better deal down the road and says, sorry, John, they beat you by $1,000. My fault.
Okay.
Customer says they went with a different product. My fault. Customer says that they're going to wait until the incentives change. My fault.
I'm starting to see a pattern here.
I adopted a philosophy that said everything absolutely that comes into my world is my fault. It's 100% mine. And that is something that very few salespeople want to really accept and believe. And I would say that that's probably one of the biggest obstacles they have is their own psychology. If you don't accept my standard that I'm sharing with you, if you don't believe that philosophy, you enter into victimology fairly fast. It's very easy to blame management. They're not putting enough in the trades. They're not getting the right vehicles. They're not advertising like they should. They're not coming out and taking good TOs. They suck as closers. They're hiring too many people. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, there's 1,000 things if you look for them that are the reasons why you're not successful.
This is a concept I first learned from our very own host, Patrick. He taught me this back in the day when we were just coworkers and not yet married. Let's hear about it from his perspective.
Hearing what you're saying, this is how it computes in my mind and how I've always ran it through my database, I guess, is that I have a role in everything that happens to me. And it didn't occur to me until I was probably 28 years old, almost 30 probably, that whole personal perception of life changed. It wasn't just car sales, right? It was everything. Sure. And I think that you see that, especially, I don't know if it's just amplified in a dealership for whatever reason, it perpetuates itself, but there are so many people that just want to point fingers. It was never their fault. It's the egos, it's whatever. But man, oh man, you find the guy or the couple people that really are willing to take it on and own it, and take responsibility that they have a role in everything. They're the ones that you see excel and amplify, much faster than the regular curve.
Kind of like that movie, the movie called Your Life. You are responsible for your own results. If you don't realize and recognize your role in the way things play out,
and you just can't do it. You can't buy into that lie, or you stay stuck.
The outcome of taking ownership is quite the opposite, as Jonathan describes in his own experience.
And that was liberating for me. It set me free, and it allowed me to become incredibly creative. It allowed me to become more confident in my ability to change outcomes. I had to. It was my fault.
and it's hard to get to a breakthrough in this line of thinking. Sometimes it takes a traumatic event, some type of personal drama or situation to come to the realization. Sometimes you come to the realization through a coach. I know that I didn't take ownership for a lot of things in my life, be it personal or professional, until I was coached to think different. This coach just so happens to now be my husband. But in all seriousness, it was a game changer for me. Until this change happens, people stay stuck.
Until that happens, most will stay stuck. And, average sucks. It just sucks. It's very painful to be average.
And like I said earlier, no one wants to be average. As a quick plug for Jonathan and the coaching he offers individual salespeople, if you're stuck, reach out to him. We'll link to his websites, blog, and social media in the show notes at belesstypical.com/020.
So we've talked about Jonathan's top 3 action items. We've talked about the biggest obstacle salespeople face. Let's go for some low-hanging fruit, something you can change and try out today on the job. Jonathan calls these subtle language changes.
Subtle language changes can influence and impact customers' motivation to buy.
We can all appreciate how emphasizing certain aspects with a customer changes the dynamic. There's a great story I love to share in my training. I say there's a preacher man who has 2 sons. And one son comes to him and he says, "Daddy, can I eat while I pray?" And the dad says, "Eat while you pray? No, of course not. What are you talking about? You don't eat while you pray. Are you kidding me? Get out of here. Where do you come up with this stuff?" His next son comes up to him later in the day and says, "Daddy, is it okay if I pray while I eat?" And he says, "Well, son, the scriptures, they say to pray always in all things. You should always find time to pray. You're a good kid." So what's the difference? They're both essentially asking the same thing, but by emphasizing a certain aspect of the question, it changes the dynamic and the feel entirely.
So true. So let's look at another example, one that's specific to our industry.
To set it up, here's a classic scenario that I think everyone can relate to. A customer asks a question that you, the salesperson, doesn't want to answer yet. For example, let's say you've just greeted a customer on the lot and they start firing questions at you. Questions like, "What's my trade-in value? What are the going rates when financing?" And you haven't even landed on a vehicle yet. So these questions are considered to be premature in nature.
So this is a classic scenario, and the average salesperson's response is something to the effect of, "Hey, I understand the question. I totally get it. I'm not the one who handles that. My job's to make sure you find the right car. Let's do this. I'll get you the price that you're wanting, but first, let's make sure we like the car and drive the car." So again, classic response, no big deal.
I'd say that's pretty classic. How can you change the response and fix it?
Problem with that is there's 2 words that I hate, which are the word but and the word first. To me, those words are terrible words to use in a sales approach. The word but obviously operates as some sort of contraction. It essentially negates what you've just said. You say, "I'm going to help you, but." Well, as soon as you say but, you've somehow negated what you just told them. So I get rid of that. I think that's terrible. The next thing that we often hear is we hear things like, "Well, we'll do this, but first let's do this." So then there becomes this assertion of priority of what's going to happen. So first, let's drive the car. First, let's pick out a car. First, let's do this. So I hate that assertion as well because it ranks or prioritizes the salesperson's desires above the client's. It's saying, I understand what you want, but what I want is more important. So again, it's a simple example of that. You replace but first with and both. So it sounds something like this. "I appreciate the question on the price. I'll be happy to work with you on that. I will get you the price on the car, and I'll make sure that it's a car that you're going to really like. I'm going to make sure I get you both." So instead of saying, "But let's make sure it's a car you like," I say, "And I'll make sure it's a car you like." Instead of saying, "First we'll do this, then we'll do this," I say, "We're going to do both for you."
It's a more cooperative language to use. Substitute and both in the place of but first. Subtle, but it does change the delivery and the feelings associated with it.
Another example of altering language.
A manager. My manager is the one who sets the price. My manager is the one who I'd have to ask for approval on that. My manager will have to look at your trade again, which elevates a single person or a role that, may create conflict.
So replace the title manager and instead say something like member of the management team or a management team member. Another example to use is the word computer.
I also use the word computer instead of manager, depending on what I'm talking about. So instead of me saying, my manager gave me a worksheet here for you, so here's what the numbers are. I'll say the computer has generated an option, for you, and here's what the numbers are. So deflecting to the computer rather than to a manager.
Other subtle language changes: value price versus sale price, fair market value instead of trade-in price, and experience versus test drive.
Whole bunch of subtle changes that I make in my language choices with the customer that it just changes the tonality of what we're saying. It changes how it feels.
And people buy from people they like, people they trust. Jonathan runs us through another scenario, a real-life example. During a dealership visit, he intercepted a conversation with a salesman who had a customer that didn't want to test drive a vehicle. He only wanted the price and some numbers.
And I said, well, let me go talk to your customer. So I walked out there, started, a conversation with the client who was on the show floor. And I said, have you had an opportunity to experience the Kia Soul? And he said, experience it, it's a Kia. And I said, yes, sir, but it's quite the experience. Have you had an opportunity to experience it for yourself? He says, no, man, I really haven't. I was just here to see if I can get some numbers. I said, well, I think you're robbing yourself of quite an experience, and I really encourage you to experience it. And I just used the word experience like 7 times in a row with the guy. And he says, wow, you're serious about this, aren't you? And I said, I absolutely am, and I'd love to hear your opinion once you experience it for yourself. I'll get the keys. He said, okay. He comes back from the test drive, and I said to the customer, I said, what was your opinion now that you've experienced it? He said, that's a lot more car than I thought it was going to be. That's actually a really nice car.
So the question then becomes, who would you rather present numbers to? The guy who just came in asking for numbers, or the guy who experiences the vehicle and thinks it's a really nice car? I think we all know the answer to that one.
And if you're willing to put the kind of effort and focus we've talked about throughout this episode into your personal, professional career, you will undoubtedly find success. Finding success can give you the freedom you're looking for, which is why Jonathan has devoted his professional career to the automotive industry.
When I was younger, I didn't have a relationship with my father because he worked so much. He worked 3 jobs to provide for us. And as a kid, you don't understand that. You don't appreciate what your dad is doing. You just see that he's never there. All you know is that he doesn't care because he doesn't come to the games, and he's not there to play, and he comes home stressed and tired, and he has a short temper. And that's what I grew up with. And I said, if I can change that, not only for my life, but for anybody else, if I can give them back what I never had with my dad, that's why I'm going to do this. I'm going to save the world one salesperson at a time.
Saving the world one salesperson at a time. A mission that we try to do here at Be Less Typical too.
In closing, Jonathan shares a few additional thoughts.
You can have absolute certainty. I'm talking complete confidence that you can create the kind of income your family deserves. And that if you're going to step away from your family or whoever it is that you love most in the world and come to a dealership for 50 or 60 hours a week, that they deserve out of that time, and you deserve out of that time, the best possible version of yourself to optimize your opportunities to create the kind of financial future and security that your family deserves. I also would say to you that you can also have the greatest sense of variety and creativity when you learn how to sell properly. Every day is a new day. Every sale an adventure. You can have that as well. And if you're somebody who wants to be in a community of top performers, they say that it's lonely at the top. You know what? I would say there's plenty of room. Come join us. It's a party. There's a lot of great car people out there who do it the right way, and the world is waiting for another great car person who will come out and do it the right way. Once you decide to do that, you'll be super unique. So I would just say to anybody listening to this, if you find anything out of this conversation, I hope you've been encouraged. I hope that you have increased in your hope of what's possible for your family, what's possible for your business, and what's possible out of your own production. My hope is that I've given you hope.
Amen. To connect with Jonathan, just Google Sellchology, SELLCHOLOGY, or check out his blog at ycarguy.com. AutomotiveTNT.com is his personal coaching platform, which provides support and resources for individual salespeople. Or if you're interested in dealership support, check out Sellchologyuniversity.com. You can find him on Facebook, and of course, we'll link to all of this in the show notes. And don't forget, if you want the job aid PDF we mentioned earlier in the show to start implementing Jonathan's advice today, text the word Dawson, DAWSON, to the number 44222 and opt in.
Again, a special thank you to Jonathan Dawson for being a guest on the show. For show notes, go to belesstypical.com/020. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode. To find all previous episodes of the show, find us on iTunes, Stitcher, or our website.
Our theme song is by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. All episode editing and mixing is done by us, a couple of amateurs learning as we go.
2 items before we sign off. Number 1, please take a moment to share our show with your friends, family, and coworkers. Sharing is caring, and we appreciate your support. Number 2, if you or anyone you know are conducting car sales in a less typical way, please reach out to us. We want to hear your story, and there's a chance you could be featured on an upcoming show. Send me an email so we can connect. My email address is patrick@belesstypical.com.
Behind the scenes.
A story he tells us he's a bit embarrassed by. A story he tells us he's a bit embarrassed by.
We can just take out the sentence.
That was bad?
You said you don't understand it.
Well, was that last one? I was ready to, I was like resetting, and then you just it up again. A story he tells us he's a bit embarrassed by. A story he tells us he's a bit embarrassed by. I don't know. Do any of those sound like it'll make sense?
All of them did.
Okay. Agreed. Moving on. Agreed. Moving on. Agreed. Moving on. I should have just nailed it.
Agreed. Moving on. Agreed. 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 That's what you sound like.
Agreed. Moving on. What's Jonathan's number 3 strategy?
It's a recommendation.
I wanted to say that. Agreed. Moving on. What's Jonathan's number 3 recommendation?